Hello, this is Craig Nadeau with the Bold Strong podcast. Today I have a special guest with me, Alberto Nunez from 3D Muscle Journey. I had an opportunity to meet Alberto when we were at the WNBF Pro-Ams in Calgary last year. We had a great opportunity to speak then, but I wanted to speak with him a little bit more, learn a little bit more about where he's headed and some of his coaching experiences. Today we got to talk a little bit about coaching, the bodybuilding scene, diet, a little bit of everything actually, and got to find out a little bit about what he's doing going forward in his career. In any case, let's jump into it. Again, this is Craig with Bold Strong. Please hit subscribe and follow us online. Thank you. And now, what's your plans competing wise? Are you going to be back on stage before too long? Or are we going to see you again?
I could technically do this year. Like, it wouldn't even be a bad idea. But it's more so like you want to keep it fun and special when you do it. So I'm gonna skip a year. Yeah, that's the main thing. But
yeah,
like post diet, I was like back to normal and recovered like a week later. I was like, let's get to it. So
you were dicey, like seriously, like it was so impressive when I saw you there in November last year. That was wicked. So
that was a fun show too. That was such a fun show.
It was long.
I had a blast.
It was long, and I take some responsibility.
No, was it me? Is it him?
Yeah, it was a long show. Like it was. I think I got up on stage at like probably 8:45, and I think I feel like I was there till 11:30 or something crazy at night. So that was long.
That's right. Yeah, because you had double duty. I did my part and I left. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was so one of the things that I was going to ask you is, and I think you guys there was a podcast, and I'm pretty sure you were in it sometime ago. It was maybe a few years ago, just talking about trying to convince people not to compete. And remember that one? Eric,
yes.
I'm sure was in it. So like, has your mind changed on that at all? That was a couple of years ago, I think, when you guys cut that. Like, and I actually literally, anytime I talk to someone who's thinking about competing, I make sure they listen to that before they dive in too deep. But like, has your mind changed on that at all?
No, not really. We did make a podcast later on why you should compete, just because we felt like we were just being negative Nancy's about it,
Yeah.
Just to even it out. But it's like the whole world's telling you should compete, and that like it's a good time, and that it's going to transform your physique and your life, and new levels of happiness will be attained. So more than anything, we just want to make sure that the prerequisites are in order before someone takes up such a task. So so it's in large, it's stayed the same. We just gotta be careful with that, because how people are. It's like, hey, mom says no, go ask dad. And one of those games. Yeah.
Like, a lot of people say you got to find your why in doing this. Like, what's your why? Like, why do you get up and do it? And why do you, like, what drives you?
Man, I think for me, when I started, this was like my last chance at any sort of sport, just because I just didn't have my stuff together when I was younger. And so as soon as the track window closed for me, I was like, all right, well, I got this bodybuilding thing. Let's see what we can do there. So it started as like, I wanted to live in that fantasy land of like being an athlete. And then eventually it was, back against the wall. It's like, I got to make this bodybuilding thing work, especially given where I came from. So that was the initial thing. It's like, okay, it was, I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted a better life. And I think now it's just a deeper, there's deeper whys, I think you spend enough time in any domain, just really getting after it. You start to see a lot of the parallels between whatever it might be in life. So there's a lot of growth outside of just like biceps and bodybuilding, but you got to stick around for a while, and then like it has a deeper meaning.
Yeah, I was talking to a bunch of young men yesterday evening, and they were talking about, and I said, you gotta
you got to find out why you're doing this. And I said, why would you guys ever want to even lift up a weight? And they were like, oh, I want to be disciplined. I want to have good habits. And it was very esoteric, you know, it wasn't like, I want to look better so I can pick up girls, you know, like it was super esoteric. It was kind of funny actually. So, but yeah,
I think we start there, but like where they ended up, it doesn't take most people who are doing it for the simple reasons to like find a deeper meaning. I think that's almost everyone, all the gym faces you see all the time, like they're there for a deeper reason.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's almost funny because there's a whole series of memes on wherever their memes list live, talking about, you know, what a guy thinks is going to happen when he gets big and Ripley, and then what actually happens. And it's usually you're talking to lots of guys, not the girls that you thought you were going to talk to. So so it's kind of cool. So one of the other things, like, you've been doing this now since like forever, like it probably seems like forever. And I know one time I think I saw something online and it said, oh yeah, Alberto's like one of the newer guys. I was like, you probably don't feel that way now, right? How has it changed for you now? Like you've been doing it quite a while, not as long as me, but because I've been doing this for too long almost. But like, what's changed now?
I think I've been through maybe like 3 generations of like bodybuilders. I'd say like the average, like just the names that, you know, kind of encompass the sport, they last about 7 years, it seems like. I feel like I'm working on my 3rd generation, and I think now more than ever that's the goal. It's like I always want to be a part of this community. I always want to contribute in some way. I told myself that, hey, like I want to win pro shows. I've won a few in my 30s. I want to do it in my 40s. I want to do it in my 50s. And I want to do it in my 60s. So I want to be around for many generations. And I just want to set the example for people where it's like, hey, like, you know, you can do it this way. You don't shine as bright. Like it should, like if you went down the IFBB route, but it lasts so much longer, you know? And just how I wanted to, like this bodybuilding was a continuation of my athletic career. Now I just want to be an athlete as long as I can and like be part of that amazing community.
When you first got into it, like, you know, you weren't doing it to be on Instagram or like to have a website. Like 3DMJ's done amazing things really over it's been a long time really, right? Like over a decade. Like, and that wasn't probably one of the initial things that you thought about or got into. When did that like start to evolve into the mix of what you're doing?
You know, it was, but it wasn't. Because I think if you are overly, let's say, focused on getting first place, you can skip things like when it comes to the process. So for me, I know I wanted bodybuilding to like, I wanted to get a better life through bodybuilding. But the thing was, this was like 2006, 7, 8. Like there was no clear route as to how this was going to even happen. But, you know, you have to be in touch with the consumers. And at this point, I was a pure consumer. And I'm like, if I'm here interested, like I remember Lane Norton was releasing these like Inside the Life of a Natural Bodybuilder things on bodybuilding.com. And they were like streaky. They were inconsistent uploads, you know, but I was just like, I'd refresh, I'd get there every day. Oh no, nothing today. Right. So I knew there was people wanted more of this. And I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew that, hey, if I took care of business, if I did my part, it could be a possibility. No one, you know, back then saw it coming, because I think even like the top IFBB pros, like the stuff they were having to do to get by wasn't exactly what they signed up for. So I didn't know how, but I wanted it to work out.
Yeah. Did you ever think you would, like, I think there would be a lot of people that would say you're an influencer. Like, did you ever kind of see that was going to go that way, that you would be the guy?
I think it's just the life of all athletes. Like you're a role model, whether you choose to or not. Like a few years back, I don't know who it was. Like I think this basketball player, he said something along the lines like, well, I'm not a role model. And I'm like, well, you kind of are. Like, you don't pick that,
Yeah.
So yeah, people are always watching. And I think because of that, I think more now than ever, like more than ever, I'm careful in regards to like what I put out there, because whether I like it or not, it's going to be absorbed. So yeah, I guess in the 1990s, it's like role models. And then like now it's like, it's influencers.
Right.
The funny dynamic there though, it's like, so I read this book early 2000s by Gene Kilborn. I think it was called Killing Us Softly. And it was like how the media just really, can I cuss on this podcast?
Yeah.
All right. That fucks us over.
Right.
Just gives it to us, just fools us. And this was like the major media. And then like now fast forward to like, hey, it's like anyone can be the media.
Right.
It's like whatever we were accusing like this, corporate power of doing, like we all do to each other.
Right.
So like, right. Same creatures, right? It's humans that were running Pepsi. And the same thing when it comes to fitness. So I try to do my best in that regard, make sure that what I do put out there, it's like, it's honest, and that it helps people.
Yeah. I was talking to this guy at the gym maybe a month ago or so. And I said, well, like, what's your plans here? Like you're videotaping everything you do. And he goes, I want to be an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I don't know if you picked that as a job. Like, I don't know if that, you apply for that and then you get a job as a senior influencer. And I think you have to be that guy and just say the right stuff, to say stuff that people are interested in. And yeah, that was.
It's an outside in way of looking at it. It's like, first you need to do something. And I hate, I just give it to the young kids straight, especially when it's like at the gym, like they let me, and they're cool with the straightforwardness, but it's like, you got to do something before people give a shit, basically. And that's just going to take a while. It takes a while to be good at anything. So, old lady's got cooking channels on YouTube. It's like, it's because she didn't decide, hey, I'm gonna be an influencer, let me learn to cook. It's just something she's been doing forever.
Yeah, she was a cook and then became the influencer. That's a great way to do it. Did you think, like you were mentioning, just kind of you started on and then you're careful about what you think about, but do you think that what has changed for you? Like, is there anything that you've looked back at and say, I can't believe I used to promote that, because now it's kind of like the knowledge base has evolved and now we know something different?
I think everything just comes more from a more nurturing angle. It's like this community, this sport has been like just really good to me. And it's like, well, I need to help this continue. So whatever it's not about like always being positive, always being optimistic. It's not about lying to people, but yeah, I want to help people find themselves, and that's the one thing the sport can do for you. So yeah, I think being just taking up the role of a leader, because that comes with a lot of small print. It's like everyone wants to be the leader, but it's not always easy to be a leader or a good leader. It isn't. So yeah, trying to do my best to lead by example mostly.
That's cool. So this is, someone was asking, I was saying, hey, I'm going to be speaking with Alberto, and what would you want to know? What would Alberto think? And I think one of the questions that came up was, do you think that this is super, like, dive right into the weeds very quick, but do you think that like FFMI limitations, like, and I am sure you've talked about it before, like, and there's always going to be, in the standard deviation bell curve, you're always going to have your guy who's 3 deviations out. But like, I've been talking to a lot of guys that just are feeling like they plateaued, and then every video on plateaus is like, it's not working. I'm not gaining weight. I'm not gaining muscle. I'm just I'm here, and this is maybe where I land. What do you think? Like, where are you at with FFMI limitations?
I think to start, they don't capture everything. It's like bicep size. Like in my case, I have a pretty low score. I think I'm like 23. So there's a gap there between like what the limitation is. Because when it comes to bodybuilding, there's so many things that create that look, right? And I think symmetry is something that no scale can really capture. And symmetry is like, it's not calves to bicep, left to right. It's little things like what came to mind. It's like the way Kevin Levroni's triceps like attached into his elbow.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you can't explain that. Or like natural bodybuilding, Valentine Azuga, like the way his front lat spread just looks like it needs to be a logo for something.
Right.
So you know, like, so
Yeah.
there's so many other things outside of just growing that can drive a bigger physique. So FFMI captures one side
element
of the equation. Yeah, but I think symmetry, like I've seen some pretty intermediate looking bodybuilders that have like wiped the floor with guys that were much more muscular just because they had the right bone structure. So yeah, so I don't think it's a hard limitation. I think somewhere around there is just where you're going to find like most people kind of pull kind of like below it.
Right.
But I mean, shoot, if we were to take, have you ever seen a Polynesian?
Yeah, I work out, like one of my best friends is a Polynesian guy. Yeah.
Right. It's like if they just ran that, like, I don't know, go find a gym in Nauru or something, right? Like they blow it away. So there's no hard answers to like where the limit is. I think as you scale above that, but I worked with a guy, his name is Nsima Inyang. Kid you not, 6'1", about. On stage he was 230.
And dicey at 230.
I'd say, yeah, pretty acceptable. Like, wow. He had glute striations, you know.
Wow, that's crazy.
And
that's huge.
Yeah, when I first met him, he was like off season, like 270, 6'1". He's a co-host on Mark Bell's podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So,
wow.
You know, but here's the thing. But you and I can look at him. Like, I think the only way you can, like, there's this natty or not like fiasco that's always kind of going on. Like, you only earn the like natty or not goggles like if you've been around the sport for like a long time.
Yeah.
You know, like you and I could tell, you know, like, right. Like you can have a guy that's 26 but we can tell it's like he's natty. And you can have a guy that's 23, right? And it's like, well, he not natty, right? No. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Polynesians. Like my friend, he's natural, and just his like across his mantle is so big. Like his traps are huge, his shoulders are huge, and his chest, but he's not ripped. And then when he gets ripped down, like it starts to peel down, but his fat distribution is just so good. It's amazing. It really goes on where it's supposed to go. It's really impressive. So I wish I had that. I know where my fat goes. Wrong spot.
There's some weirdos in this sport, right? We love to hate them.
Yeah. Well, you worked out a little bit with Nipered, right? A little while ago, a while back. So yeah. So he's got to be touching the end of he's a deviation or two up the scale. I think he's great. So
yeah, I think if you ever wondered what a like drug-free Flex Lewis would look like that's definitely straight up. Yeah,
it's impressive. Do you find too, like as you're getting, I'm gonna say you're getting on in years, but like you're not, but like do you find that you're like warming up a lot more, that you have more aches and pains, or like what's been happening that way for you?
It's actually been the exact opposite.
No way, really? Wow.
Yeah. I do so little warming up. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah.
What's
combination
that
of things.
Why? What happened there? Like, how's that working?
Well, when I was in my like early 20s, because my fault with other sports was I just didn't try hard enough. That was my thing.
Yeah.
You know, when it came to the practice element, and bodybuilding is just like the practice that never ends. Like that's what it feels like, right? Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm not going to make that same mistake again. So I'm just going to like just tear myself apart every session. Like that was the goal. It's like it isn't what I could recover from. It's what I was willing to do. Like that's how we did things.
Yeah.
You know, you take the typical 20-something technique, all that. So then that works until it doesn't work, and then got hurt at around 24, 25. It was a pretty bad injury. I thought I was done bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then kind of worked around that for a few years. I thought I was never going to be exactly the same as pre-injury, but like the way my mind ticks is like, I'm gonna try to figure this out and just try to find better ways to move, better ways of doing this. So over the last few years, especially, I have a friend here in Boulder. His name's Chasm Hansen. He has this company called like N1, and completely like, so people will say it's like, okay, well, this hasn't been like scrutinized per the scientific method, like all the way down, but like ergonomics are one of those things where if you try something, it's like one of those machines that just fits you, where you're like, oh, it feels like it's just me against the weight, not me against the weight against my body. So I've learned to select movements, execute movements in a way that I personally feel are much more efficient. And because of this, like, I thought there's a certain level of pain that I felt like as an athlete, I just had to run around with. But over the last, like, I'd say like 2 years, I've been like, it's weird when something is a little achy now. Whereas like in the past, it was just a rotating number of things. And if it's only two, it's a pretty good day. So just being more mindful as a lifter.
I was listening to I forget who it was now, so it's probably best I don't attribute it anyways, but I was listening to one guy talk, and he was and the guy was grilling him on steroid use and and addictions and that sort of thing. And he said, you know what, probably there's more bodybuilders that are hooked on painkillers than the actual steroid, because you're just hurting yourself constantly at that level. So that would be terrible to be in that spot. I can't imagine.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I mean, I've had a small taste of it, and this was with like a non-enhanced body. So I could only imagine if, if I added, steroids to the equation and I was lifting much heavier. Whoa. So
keep up. Nothing can keep up with the muscle. So what do you like when you have new guys show up, like the kid? What's your message to the kids that are like, and maybe part of this question too is, and we've all seen it, and I don't think the Liver King was maybe he's a bit of our apex in conversations about steroids. And like, do you think that this whole conversation about steroids has gotten better now that people are being more open, or is it getting worse now because everyone's saying, oh, that's how you do it? Or is it better now and it's like, I get it and I'm not going to do that, I can't do that? Like, where do you think it's heading? Because I'm kind of feeling torn now in the middle of it.
No, I totally understand that. Because I remember, like, for me, early 2000s, I was the exact opposite of these kids. Like, I was just like, I can be almost as big as I want. Like,
I thought that way too. Yeah, I always
thought. And there's something to that dreamer mentality, right? But there was clearly some guys for sure that I knew were using in my gym. Like, they were just like clear as day. But you kind of knew as a kid, like, not to go ask. Like, it's something you had to earn. Like it's and eventually it's like I earned my stripes. I trained a little longer, started to make some progress, and it's almost like these guys were talking to me about it. But it was something that was earned. Like, had I walked up to them and it's like, hey, what are you on at 17? Like, I would have had to carried out with a shovel, but eventually, and usually always the message was, it's like how complicated it was. Like these people are usually very honest with that, like how complicated it is, how many things they have to stay on top of, the good for sure, but then also like they tell you a lot of the cons. But that was something that had to be earned. And like now I feel that it's a little bit more normalized, where certain trainers will have these conversations with kids and not inform them in the way that I was informed. And then also now you have like the back door where, hey, you can just get SARMs like through your friend who is old enough to, I guess, purchase them. So it's good and bad, because like we're having these discussions, but sometimes I guess it just really matters who is having these discussions. Right. So man, it's just really hard to convince a young person that 5 years isn't very long,
Yeah, no kidding.
you know,
Yeah,
and that we should probably be guided a little bit more by our intrinsic motivations,
yeah,
because, if you're like hopping on stuff so that like you can make it and so that everyone's like, watching you and, you're the next big thing, that's not for you, man. Like in
yeah,
every dynamic, there's always a pimp, there's always a hoe. Right? It's like,
yeah,
which one are you? Are you the producer or are you the consumer?
yeah.
Hmm,
It is
something to
shocking
think
when
about.
you see some of these kids are like, they're starting out as pencil thin. They immediately go on gear and then they're in shows immediately and they're monstrous. Like, I don't know what the end game is for these guys because like they're like literally in the early 20s doing this. And it's, I don't know. I don't know what the end game is. Can't be good. It's got
No,
to go sideways at some point.
it's concerning, but you know how it goes. It's unfortunately every generation's kind of a guinea pig for something in a
Yeah,
certain way.
that's true.
And hopefully like the preteens like right now, by the time they make it into it, like we've kind of sorted that out as a community.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think maybe, and that's one of the really nice things about WNBF and its level of testing is that you know who's there. Like you have a much stronger sense of what you're competing against. So that's nice. There's something nice about that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
always like did you say you had started in NPC? Is that where you started?
So I think my first show was going to be NPC Teen Nationals, but
Oh, really? Yeah.
yeah, getting funding as a 19-year-old,
Yeah.
to travel across the country and do the whole thing,
Yeah.
just wasn't in the cards. So after that, I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do? And thankfully, yeah, I found my way into like the natural bodybuilding community,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna at least give this a
Yeah.
try. I saw Lane Norton was coming up at the time, so I'm like, hey, like the way I saw it, it's like if he's coming up, it's like, hey, there's
Yeah.
something there,
Yeah.
Um, but I did want to. I think the initial goal was to like, okay, earn my pro status
Right.
naturally, and then it's like, okay, let's head into this other direction and focus on the NPC IFBB. But once I
Right.
saw the talent pool, like
Yeah.
my first pro show after like winning every major like
Yeah.
natural show in California, I got mobbed. I was
Really?
like,
Is that
I
right?
was 11th out of 11. Yeah.
Really?
Um,
Wow.
yep. In the lightweight class. And I was like, okay, like there's a lot of work to do here, and these guys are
Yeah.
immensely talented. I want to stay here.
So like, that's an interesting question because I've worked with people that have like been last, like just call it last for argument's sake. And like mentally, where do you go with that? Like I always worry about someone who's like, you try to pump them up and say, all right, you're gonna get out there, you're gonna slay this, and you're the big shit, and you're gonna go out and win this, and then they're last. And it's like it's like, woo, we're way over here now. Like, how do you deal with it mentally?
Mm. See, and this is where the intrinsic motivation really
Yeah.
comes in handy. Like the first show I ever won, I felt like the guy who got second in the overall should have
Oh,
had it.
really?
And along with that, I wasn't very pleased with the way I had like I wasn't able to balance things like across the
Mm,
board in my life the way I had hoped. So
yeah.
I remember like pumping up backstage, and I'm like, I didn't feel very confident, and I'm like, all right, you're about to go up there, get your butt whooped, because there's these guys here that look amazing,
Yeah.
and and then you have some things to fix like outside of bodybuilding. I
Yeah.
think I withdrew from a class, and withdrew from a class that I felt at the time, had it not been for the prep, that wouldn't have happened.
Mhm.
So I was like, okay, last time this happens, last time this happens. I ended up winning the show,
Yeah.
but I wasn't very satisfied. And I've had a lot of times where it's like, okay, I come out on top, but I'm like, I'm the harshest judge,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that involves, yes, the bodybuilding and the methods and how you execute it, but
Right.
also, uh, throughout this whole time, are you the person you wanted to be outside of the gym as well?
Yeah, that's true. I remember I was one of the shows I was in, I came in third. I was so disappointed. Like I know it probably took me a year before I actually got over it. Like I just couldn't deal with it. And like even looking at the picture of the guy that beat me, like Like if I looked at it today, I'd be like, well, obviously, I know why he beat me. But back then, no, I had none of that. I could not manage that at all. It was really bad. So
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah, no, it can be a gut punch, man. Like,
Yeah. Oh,
right.
well. So what's your, other than, you're talking about outside the gym. So what else is going on in life? Where are you at with 3DMJ? What's going on with the other, sell yourself. You can pump the brand, pump Alberto right now.
Yeah, so the company's always kind of going strong. Like it's its
Yeah.
own little beast at this point, and we've got a fantastic team of not just
Yeah.
coaches but specialists and people like doing the media. So
Right.
it's cool that like okay, it's like in a good place. Obviously, you need to keep changing things up every
Yep.
few years
Yeah.
because industries, they change and they
Yeah.
pivot. So I'm very pleased with that. The fact that okay, this thing it's solid and it's running. Um, I think on a personal level, I've been I guess I've learned to appreciate writing a lot more.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, simply because you can really say what you want to say. Like,
Yeah.
you can go back and you're like, oh, I don't like that word. Let's find a
Right.
better word.
Hmm.
So gets you to think slow. So I really want to dedicate more time to that. I'm writing a fat loss book that has turned into a whole like just it's an own like it's just a beast of project.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and I don't know how I'm going to like eventually let go of that thing because it's never going to feel
Right.
ready enough.
Yeah.
But I've actually kind of taken a break from it because it was like
Yeah.
just gnawing away at me. But I need to get back in it. I guess when I find myself in these sort of ruts where it's like this is what you want to do, you told yourself you do this, but you took like a 2-month hiatus. It's like it reminds me of people who are trying to be consistent, like with the gym and how they feel
Yeah.
the same, very similar sort of resistance. So writing has been my thing of late, simply because you really get to think slow and clearly and really explain your ideas. And as you're writing, quite often, like you're learning yourself. So as much as in the past, I think I've enjoyed video quite a bit.
Yeah.
Writing, I like more, at least right now. It's just that nobody reads anymore. That's the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I just blew through that. You remember, that book, Burned by Ponzer? So
Uh-huh.
you probably read that
Okay.
one. So yeah,
No, I haven't read that, but I
that's
know
worth
it.
reading. That's for sure worth reading. So I think Trexler had it. He was talking about it the other day on a podcast. So, and I burned through it. It's like deep. And I think the crazy thing about, and I won't say it's a diet book because it's like an in-depth, look at, dual compensation methodologies, and fat compensation. But, I think if you were to summarize it to 90% of the people, they would be like, yeah, doesn't even make sense to me. But then you start reading it and it's like, whoa, I don't think I'm smart enough to read this. So then you gotta plow through. You have to finish it, otherwise it won't make sense. So, but you gotta finish your book.
Yeah, you gotta finish that book. It started as a contest prep, like sort of
Yeah,
book. But
right.
then I'm like, ooh, you know what's gonna happen? The wrong people are gonna try to use these
Yeah.
ideas that I have set for contest prep for casual fat loss phases. So I have to write the
Mm,
intermediate fat loss phase. But then I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of people out there who probably shouldn't be on true fat loss phases. They can probably lose fat just by changing certain baseline habits. So
right.
then so I ended up going from a contest prep book to like
Mm,
beginner fat loss, intermediate fat loss, and
right.
I haven't even started the contest prep because the intermediate fat loss is so long. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was looking at Arnold's book, The Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, and I was holding it in my hand, and it's like literally this thick. And such a huge portion of it is about diet and contest prep. And it's like, I don't think he wrote that.
No, no way, no way. And I don't think most people even read it. I think they just looked
No.
at the pictures, yeah,
Yeah,
because the pictures
exactly.
were cool.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think, just in regards to fat loss, like I'm sure you're familiar with semaglutide and stuff like, and it's not on the WADA list, which is interesting, hey? But it's
Mhm.
got to land there at some point, don't you think?
Yeah, usually those sort of things
Yeah.
catch on. I guess there's just very few, I guess, typical athletes, like when you look across most sports,
Yeah.
where weight is a big issue because they're
Right.
so much more active.
Right.
I can see it like in
That's a
sports
good
like
point.
boxing or gymnastics, where it's like, okay, that it can find its way there. But
Yeah.
for most sports, like, hey, most track and field athletes, it's like the
Right.
practices are like 4 hours.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
they're easy to maintain weight.
The
So
struggle isn't losing weight. It's trying to keep what you have. Right. Yeah.
trying to
I
keep
used
that
to,
sweet spot. So
I was in cycling for a little while. It was like, and I was fat essentially. So I'd go on these ridiculous weight loss programs before I had to compete because the thought of hauling an extra 20 or 30 pounds up a hill was, oh, it was terrible. But I would just starve myself. It was probably the worst contest prep ever. And then I'd show up at the competition like so depleted and dead. It was really the wrong way to go completely. So
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, we can get there with just the hammer, but it doesn't always look right.
yeah, that's right. Did you say you're in Colorado? You're in Denver right now?
Yep.
Well, where?
North of Denver. I'm like
Okay.
hour, but it's the only real major city here. So
Yeah.
I'm an
Huh.
hour from it, hour-ish.
Well, you were in Toronto for a while, right? Like it is where, or were you not in Toronto? I thought you were in
No,
Toronto.
but I had been to Toronto a few times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So, well, I
yeah.
thought for some reason, maybe it was because you were talking to Nipered or something like that. I thought maybe you're in Toronto. So, yeah. Well, that's cool. Have you been to, you've probably been to, you've heard of Las Vegas. You probably, have you been to the, Dragon's Lair Gym? That's kind of a cool
No,
experience, man. That's worth going.
no, but yeah, my brother lives out there. I'm
Yeah.
due for a visit, and
That's
I've
worth the
definitely
trip.
thought about the fact that, like, okay, if I'm there, I know where I'm gonna
Yeah.
work out.
Yeah, and there's just so many people shoot videos in there. Like when I went there last summer, and guys would walk in with a gym bag in one hand and their tripod with the camera in the other hand. It was pretty funny because most gyms they don't want you filming really because but yeah.
But that's changing. That's changing. I remember I would try to videotape my training like in the
Yeah.
mid, I don't know, like 2005, 2006, and it was a big old digital camera of those days. And like, who's filming back then, right? And I
Yeah,
remember I would have to get in good with the managers.
yeah,
But it was a commercial gym, so they changed the managers like every 6 weeks and then restart the
yeah.
process. But like now it's like even some of the commercial gyms here like want you to take selfies and stuff because it's
Yeah.
like free promotion.
Yeah, totally. What's that? I forget his full name. One of his names is Bradley. He's an IFBB pro, and he built a gym that was kind of designed around filming, like and being a producer of video.
Bradley Martin,
Bradley Martin, yeah.
Out the zoo,
Yeah.
a zoo culture, yeah.
Where's that gym? Do you know?
That's in Los Angeles. I have been to
That's
that
in
one,
LA.
but
Is that right?
I went during off hours, so it wasn't
Yeah.
like
Oh,
packed. They were like, "Oh, you should come here." If you come here at 5, it's just, I guess it's different. Yeah.
Really, we were talking about. I'll let my a great idea out of the bag, but I was talking with my friend saying we should do like a YouTube series of videos where we go across the world and visit popular, famous gyms. Like that would
I
be
thought about
super
that.
cool video. Or you could have
Like,
like 20 episodes of that video. That'd be fun.
You've ever seen Guy Fieri? Like
Yeah.
he goes to restaurants, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing, right? Yeah.
And we just keep getting bigger and bigger, just like he did.
Gym rats would watch that. They would 100%.
100%.
Like,
there's all these gyms out in the Middle East that, some of these big guys coming from the Middle East, like those would be fascinating to see.
Yeah.
And there's private gyms too. Some of the private gyms that you can't get into would be really interesting to see the inner workings. So
yeah.
There's some in Vegas that would be kind of fun to see. So
I think you'd have to do all the like typical like traditional ones that we know, like you have to get golds like gym, tennis out the way. What is it? The one on the East Coast they call the East Coast Mecca. Is it called Beverly?
That's Beverly. Isn't that like the name of the guy that started or something?
Maybe I think is the guy that owns it. But yeah, there's an East Coast Mecca. There's the old powerhouse in Tampa. So
Iron Ore. Yeah, there's it'd be fun to do it. So like how's the gym environment down there where you are?
Good. So we have Armbrust, which is like where I guess where Phil Heath was training.
Oh really? Wow.
But that is almost, it's like an hour 30 away. So
Yeah.
sometimes years that I don't go, but my gym the owner was inspired by arm breath. He wanted to make it like the Northern Colorado arm breath. So
Yeah.
so yeah, it's good. It's good. It's like
That's cool.
it's got so much equipment. It's hard to walk in there
Really?
sometimes, but
Yeah.
we'll take it.
Yeah. What are you doing split wise now? Like what's the go-to? What's the magic secret sauce for Alberto?
So I'm training 3 days a week right
Mhm.
now, and I have been since November. And big inspiration as to why I wanted to do this is just trying to see what really is moving the needle when it comes to like
Yeah.
my progress, what I'm doing right, what I'm doing enough of or not enough
Yeah.
of, right? So it was a way to kind of clear out the noise, clear out the clutter. Let's make it a little bit more bare bones and let's see how we progress. So usually post contest, it's
Yeah.
hard. I try to give my athletes, it's like, okay, hey, we need to recover. We're kind of messed up right now. I try to switch them over to 3 days a week of training.
Oh, that's good.
Usually they can stomach like 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I like about a month of that.
Yeah.
So it started as like me leading by example. Like, look, I'm going
Right.
to do it too, you know? And then I fell in love with it, at least for right now. It's like every day you look forward to training
Yeah.
when it is time to train.
So
It's very flexible when it comes to
Yeah.
like I can miss days, like, and I'm
Yeah.
not behind, you know?
so you're
So
doing 3 days a week for like 8 hours a day.
you would think so, right? But it could easily become that.
Yeah.
But I think I'm averaging like anywhere between like I think 6 to 8 sets per body part on
Yeah.
average. So there's not a whole lot of volume.
Hmm.
So yeah, they're about the same. Because
Yeah.
part of this was to like kind of cut out some of the fat.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens if we cut this. Let's see if bad things happen.
So did you trim out like the accessory exercises? Like you're sticking to the main lifts and the main stuff? Yeah.
No, those are still there. Like I'm still doing
Oh, okay.
tricep, still doing biceps, lateral
Yeah.
raises, all that important
Okay.
stuff. It's just on average, like I'll have 2 sets per exercise.
Right.
Which I've enjoyed. You know, if you have 2 sets of something, it's like you have to take it pretty close to failure or to
Yeah.
failure. So your job is quite simple. You know, I like that. You know, you're not
Yeah.
trying to manage fatigue across like 3-4 sets. It's
Right.
just like,
That's
and you can convince.
interesting. That's interesting because I wonder now that I'm thinking about it, like when I know I'm exaggerating, but if I know I'm going to do 8 sets, maybe subconsciously I'm holding back. Yeah, that's interesting.
And you kind of have to, you know, in order
Yeah.
to keep work quality high. It's like the equivalent of, I don't know, like a 5K run versus like a 15K run. It just has to be ran at a different pace.
Yeah. Huh. That's interesting. So then you're doing like are you doing one muscle group per week? Like you're doing like shoulders once a week when you do that?
Everything upper body in some way gets hit twice a week,
Okay.
Monday, Friday, and then lower body just one day.
Yeah.
Yeah, legs seem to be more straightforward. Like not just for me personally, but for most people, it's like, hey, once you've kind of nailed that, like you can usually get away with a little bit less. And I think a lot of that has to do with the way our as bipedal creatures are, the way our hips are set, right? They only move in so many directions,
Yep.
whereas like our upper body, it's like there's so many
Different
like,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of things to train.
Huh. Your legs are good though. Like you have, like I remember your legs are great, right? So
Yeah. So
Yeah.
not concerned about those for now.
What's your big leg exercise? Like what's the secret sauce there?
Okay,
You
so
only get one. You're gonna have to get rid of the rest.
I only get one. Well, if I only got one, that'd be hard. If you tell me I only get one, I would probably do um that's hard. I have to do 2 because on a squat pattern you can't really get much hamstring. You don't get any hamstring, right?
Yeah.
So I like me a good squat pattern and a good hinge, and that's going to cover so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So right now it's just my RDL, and I have the Cybex hack squat, like the one that Leo has at his gym. Like we got it literally like
Oh yeah.
2 months after that trip, and I've been bugging him forever to get it. And the thing is amazing. So
Yeah.
those two movements are like the core of my lower body training.
You got to work out at King's when you were up here?
Yeah.
Did you? Oh, that's cool. Good. Yeah.
Amazing gym. Right?
That's a great gym. Yeah. And now
Yeah.
I don't know if you were here when he had the downtown one open as well. So he has a downtown gym. So we're plugging King's Gym. Go Leo. So yeah.
Good for him.
So, yeah.
Yeah. He's got great everything from like the machines he picked to like even on the powerlift, he's a powerlifter. It's like he's got all the good bars. It's amazing.
That is pretty awesome, actually. It's very rare to go to a gym with good bars because mostly they spend nothing on bars. So.
Exactly. That's my gym.
And they spend most of the money on 35-pound weights, it seems like. And it's like, seriously, let's get rid of those. Yeah.
It saves you like, I don't know, 20 seconds, right? The 35-pound weight. That's all it is. Yeah.
No, that's good. Yeah, Leo's a good guy. Like we talk. His gym is like, I'm pointing at it. It's like just across the street pretty much. So yeah.
The original one?
No, it's the downtown gym. So I'm downtown.
Okay.
So it's just like literally a block over. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. Did you go to were you in the California show in that World show? Were you there?
Was that in California? It was in California. Yeah. No, I ended up doing World.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was that good? Like I literally didn't follow it that much. I feel bad, but I followed a couple people there, but I didn't watch what you were doing. So like, how was it overall? They changed venues at the last minute, I remember, right?
Yeah, that was hard. They had no choice. Like it came down to mold, I believe.
Right.
So 15 minutes away from the hotel.
Yeah.
And that's in Los Angeles. That's not 15 minutes, like 15 miles. So 15 miles is that can be an adventure if you go.
You have to take a flight and maybe you fly there.
In LA, just go over the traffic.
And was the show good? Like what was the overall, like, you know, the short clip of how the show was overall?
Well, I like the WNBF because I want to compete against like the best guys.
Yeah.
And that's what I was there to do, is compete against the best guys. And I ended up in the middleweight class, which is like a death sentence class. Yeah. I was off by 2 pounds. And I was like, well, you know what? Like I kind of know where I would have landed in the lightweights.
Right.
In the middleweights, I ended up getting 5th place, but that was more rewarding in its own way because that was a dogfight. Like it was last year's winner got 8th place just because it was a game of inches. Like it was
really wow.
Yeah, there was no room for error in that class, and there usually isn't. Like the middleweight class is the one class where it's just like, like it's basically quite often just like heavyweight guys that actually died it all the way down.
Right, peeled out.
Yeah. So it was a good one. It was one of my top bodybuilding experiences.
Wow. What do you think? Like when someone, and this came up the other day at the gym where someone was talking about, like I think Bumstead's coming in around. Is he 6'1"? Like he's over 6, I think.
I think he's over 6. Yeah.
But then you look historically, like just so many people that are, you know, in the, you know, 5'6" zone, give or take 3 inches, just seem to be able to put muscle on so nicely. And then when you're tall, it's tougher. But I would imagine if you were 4'10", it would also be difficult. It would look odd. I don't know. What do you think? Like what's height? How much of a factor is height in these shows?
Yeah, it can be. I think the perfect height for a bodybuilder is like the 5'7". Like 5'7" seems to be like the sweet spot. You know, it's just that when people get taller, they get longer.
Right.
And you know, we talked about symmetry earlier, and symmetry is like a lot of things. Like for example, the ratio of your humerus to your forearm bone. Like you can't even change that. Like that's just your skeletal structure. And as people get longer, it's like things grow. They grow in great proportions for sports, but not for bodybuilding. Right. So I think with Chris, even though he's like 6 feet tall, it's like if you didn't know he was, it's like he could pass as like 5'10", 5'9",
right,
from his proportions.
Yeah.
So he's got more of that like typical bodybuilding look, and that's why the muscles sit the way they do on him. But I think his height in some ways kind of works to an advantage also. Right. Because he almost looks like more like I am in command and like these are kids you're on stage with.
Yeah.
You know?
Just because you tower over other people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I saw one show. This is kind of a funny one where the guy was out in an area that was predominantly had a lot of people that originally come from China or from Japan, just like that crowd who are all quite short. And this guy is like 6'1", and so his stage pictures when he's on stage, it's just like it almost looks like he's a foot taller than these guys. He just looks like it looks fake actually, because it's just they're so small. But individually, if you kind of sized up the smaller guy, kind of all looks the same, which was kind of weird. So
yeah, he probably had good height like limb proportions like for bodybuilding, kind of like Chris does. Because we've seen it, those guys that it's like, man, you're like too tall. It's like, God bless you, you love this sport, but you're like 6'4". You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm working with one guy right now who's 6'3", and it's just like, man, it is tough. That is tough. He is struggling. And the amount of weight, like you're dealing with a different weight zone. It's crazy working with him, like how much weight he's losing and how long his muscles are. Just everything about it's odd. So yeah. So besides obviously you and me, who are the people to look out for in the near future in the community? Like who's coming up the ladder? Do you know some who are interesting?
Competitively?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love young talent. Like that's the one thing I've because especially when you're a younger lifter, it's like sometimes like what the older folks tell you isn't always the most like encouraging and patient of advice. So I'm constantly like on the lookout and celebrating for like up and coming talent. And
are you working with a number of young guys? Like who do you work with now? Like you're doing coaching, right? Like you're actually
yeah. No, I can't say I have anyone that's like younger, but I do have guys that are like on the verge of like starting to munch on their 30s, and that's a really good age range in bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But man, there's so many kids. There's so many kids out there that are. It's because again, it's like they get to stand on the shoulders of giants, so like they get to come in and they get to do more things like correctly from the start.
Yeah. I've seen a few young guys show up at shows, and then you start to follow them a little bit, and it's like, you guys are really amazing. Like it's just shocking almost how good some of them are. And then, and probably what's going to happen is, they're in their early 20s, they're going to get married, they're going to have kids, they're going to get fat for a little while. And then the kids will grow up and they'll be, hey, I lost this passion, and they'll get back to it. And, they'll show up again as 35-year-olds. So
that's what Marshall Johnson did. Like
Marshall Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah. He disappeared. I think it was like a 12-year hiatus, something.
Really?
Like that.
Ooh.
Yeah. He had grandkids, I think, by the time he came back. And
no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's crazy.
Shows up at, I think he was like 52, 53. This was Yorton Cup 2012. So I was there to spectate the Yorton Cup. I had a few athletes there, and I remember my friend Brian, he's like, Phil Ricardo might not be the leanest guy at the show. I'm like, what? And he's like, have you seen Marshall? And then I look at Marshall and I just diced and
at 52. Woo. That's crazy. I was never even on stage till I was in my 50s. So I started at 50.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Had you thought about it, and it just took a while?
Yeah. Just funny, dumb story. Like I guess I'd been in the gym since I was a little kid, really. And just because I'd been a track like you were, and I just competed in track forever, and then always been in the gym. And then I started to get big, I guess. And then there was a few people in the gym that just said, hey man, you look great. You should compete. And I was like, never happening. I would always be like, not going to happen. And then just a couple of friends of mine, they were competing, and I just kind of caught the bug, whatever it was. And then I fell in love with it, like right from that first show. It was really great. But I tell people, I did not see my abs. Like I never saw a bump on my abs until I was 50 years old. So
wow,
it's kind of crazy. Wow. And even though I was an athlete my whole life, so
yeah, it goes to show you like it's never too late. And I mean, I think at 50 also you're much more like yourself better. and you're better consolidating your efforts and all this. So like for a 50-year-old, like all those prerequisites that I gave for like younger folks, you can almost skip some of those because by the time you're 50, you have your stuff together.
Yeah, we've got it figured out. You know, and it's interesting. You were saying you wanted to compete into your 60s. It'll be interesting to see how the industry responds, because I think there's a huge trend towards competing as older athletes, and so it's not going to be just the open and then the above 40 anymore. Like you got to accommodate the 60 plus and 65 plus. Like it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out into the industry. So,
see, I want to do open my whole life. I want to just stay open. Yeah. That's the goal. I know that's gonna be hard. Easier said than done.
I got spanked in Toronto. Because like I went to the pro qualifier in Toronto. Was it 2 years ago now? And I thought, man, I'm gonna win. There's no question I'm gonna win. And then I get out there and it's like all these 25-year-olds, and it's like, nah, I'm not gonna win. So yeah, I got spanked. It wasn't a good picture.
So I was like a national level show.
Yeah, that was the pro qualifier. So I came first in the 50 plus. And then, so that put me as like #1 in Canada for a hot minute. And then I came second in the 40 plus, but then in the open, it was just like, forget it. Like, nope, not happening. So
yeah, no,
that's bound to happen.
Tough. Yeah. Like absolutely. Like to everybody. No one's immune to that one.
Yeah, no, for sure. So when are we gonna see you again? What's your next so where are you going to be traveling? Where am I going to bump into you? You're going to come up to Calgary for Stampede, I heard.
I'm thinking about it. Just because I do miss that part of last year. It's like getting to go on these like old adventures.
Yeah.
But the Leo show was good, and it's close to Worlds. So I think what did I do? Oh yeah, I did one in New York. I think instead of doing, because I like 3 shows. 3 shows is like the perfect amount. I would like to do Worlds for sure. Maybe Leo show just because it's in such close proximity to Worlds. You're in shape already. But they have a host of like amazing WNBF European shows as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And some dogs come to that. Like it's almost a preview of Worlds. And they also have the Mr. America now. And I don't know if you saw the Mr. America, but production wise, and that was last year. I'm sure they're working on something even bigger like this year. And by the time 24 rolls around, that was the one show last year that I was like, man, I should have done the Mr. America.
Really? Yeah. When is that show? Do you know, roughly? Is it fall?
I think it's fall. I think it's like late September, early October.
That would be cool to see. Yeah. That'd be cool. Well, hopefully we'll see you. That'd be fun. Come up to Leo's show. You can show me do squats properly.
I was a good show, and the crowd was so amazing. The whole energy was just amazing there.
It was really great. Yeah, it was a good time. So, well, listen, I know you're busy, so I'm gonna let you go do the rest of your life, and hopefully we can see you again before too long. It was super good to see you again now.
Thank
you. We'll catch up to you probably sometime in the summer, I suspect. So I'll come down to Denver. I'll come hang out with you.
Hey, we'll ski and
that'd be fun. Yeah. That'd be fun.
Ski and squat. Right, that's a good mixture, right?
Yeah, that would be awesome. That'd be a good time. So, all right, sir. Well, super good to see you. Glad you could take some time for us, and we'll for sure see you again soon. So, all right. Okay. Thanks for your time. All right. Okay. Have a great day.
Hello again. This is Craig from the Bold Strong Podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Had a good time making it. Always have great conversations. We have a number of tremendous guests coming up in the next little while. And hopefully you follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Look forward to sharing those stories with you. Special thanks to our editor, Chris, and to our production assistant, Aruba. Have a great day.